I was on 2 miles east Dublin.
You were born, where were you born?
2 miles east Dublin.
2 miles east?
Yeah, 2 miles east Dublin.
What year were you born?
March 29th, 1947.
Most people know you as Mr. Tater, but what's your real name? That's your artist name. That's your
That's
stage
name,
name.
What's your real name? The real name is Foster Wiley. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out, baby. Check it out.
This is Mr. Tater's hit song, Foster Wiley's hit song.
Check it out. Check it out.
So, I worked in a studio in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and Mr. Tater just hung out with us every single day. And so this was just a band that was in the studio cutting a record, and he would wait in the control room until we weren't paying attention, and he would run out into the tracking room and start directing the band into a song. And they would just start jamming along to whatever he was doing, and then it would turn into like the best stuff of their record, you know? Mr. Tater, his real name was Foster Wiley, and that's why we're called the Wiley Fosters, but people didn't know what his real name was. I knew him for a long time before I figured out what his name was. And the first time I met Mr. Tater, I had gone down to Clarksdale to help wire up a studio, and nobody had told me there's this guy, Mr. Tater, he's always around. That nobody had prepped me for him. So when you met him and then he started talking to you, and he was happy to start talking to you, you wouldn't know what to make of it.
That's what I live right there. I go down Club 2000. I played down at Queen. I live here, that's what I live all my stuff down at Club 2000 when I play. But I come here and I change clothes. That's where I live right here.
But his good nature would just push through everything, and you'd start to sort of understand him. And then you start to realize you didn't need to understand him. You could just pick up on his vibe. I ran this studio, and people would come from all over the world to record in the Delta, right? And so you would just see these people spending all this money to fly over to Mississippi and spend all this money to go into the studio, and they'd be horrified when they walked in there, and it was this tiny little dump, and the electricity barely worked. And then there was this giant weird man who was there the whole time, and we wouldn't explain to people why he was there. He was just there. Eventually, they would be taking a break from making their record, and maybe I was, fooling with the tape machine or something. And I'd look up, and Mr. Tater would be out in the studio, the tracking room, starting to direct the band. And I always was ready to record that. I had these tapes always set to the side, and as soon as I could see that happening, I'd throw the tapes in. And that's how he made a half dozen records with countless musicians. So like the whole thing was, I walked by Mystery Brewing Company once, and I was like, what is this place? And I walked in, and I could see that there was a stage, and there was a bar, and it was all clean and brand new. I mean, it looked great. And I was a little suspicious, and I went up to the bar, and I asked him, I was like, is this a bar? He's like, yeah. I was like, do you do music here? And he said, yeah, some. And I immediately thought, I want to put this place on lockdown. Like the second I walked in there. Because the thing is, I've toured around, but the touring around part is not the fun part to me. And so I was looking for a residency. And there are a couple people who inspired me to have residencies, specifically Junior Kimbrough. Junior Kimbrough was a blues musician from Holly Springs, Mississippi. And he was famous for having a juke joint. That's where he was. And he'd be playing, and you could go in, and it was his residency. It was his place, and I always remember thinking, I was like, that's really where it's at. But if you can have a place where people, if they want to see you, will come to you, that helped kind of inform how I was going to do the Wiley Fosters. The way Mr. Tater put together bands was whoever was there was in his band. He had a home base club called Club 2000. That's where he kept his gear, and that's where he would put on his shows every week, and he would encourage everybody, come on down, Club 2000. And I thought that's a good idea to have like a home base club. I found Mystery Brewing Company, made a relationship with them that it could be a place that I could keep coming back to. But who was going to be in the band? Like whoever is in the band. You know, there's some people who are consistently in the band, but it's everybody. If you just make it that nobody's in the band, everybody's in the band, whatever, make the music happen, you get to just constantly have it happening in the moment. I see a lot of parallels between the shows that Mr. Tater would produce and the shows that the Wiley Fosters produce. And I like the symmetry of that. And he said that he never played the same song twice. And, you know, he had the themes, but he never did it the same way twice. And that applies to the Wiley Fosters. Like, we do all these songs, but the band is always different. It might be 2 people, it might be like 15 people, you know? I've made a bunch of records, and just like everybody at the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, who's made records and CDs, I have a ton of them in boxes. God, physical things are so cool. It's like, it's so great to look at your CD. It's so great to look at your record, you know, it feels so good and it feels so real, but is it really, really practical? And for some people it's not, and for me it's not. I started kind of despairing about it, thinking, oh man, if we make this record but it won't sell. I was kind of grinding away at it, and my wife was the one who said, well, why don't you just make a beer instead of a record? And I was like, yes, that makes so much sense. Like, why make a physical thing that's like got all the pain in the ass parts about making a physical record? How many more middlemen and how many more steps can we take away so that the music is just, it's accessible? Because you know that you listen to every song you want to hear on YouTube instantly. Like, we're not kidding ourselves anymore. But you can make money if you play music live and you're good at it. That's where it evens out. That's where this makes sense. And when I went to Eric and I'm like, okay, I want to change the plan. Instead of paying $1,000 to make a 7-inch, could we make a beer? And Eric's like, beer is very cheap. It's fine. It comes right out of the tap. I have a place where we can make it.
So we're the Wiley Fosters. We've been playing here for about 2 years. We're in residency here. And Mystery made a beer for us. And it's called King of Ashton. And it's really, really good. And we really appreciate you all being here. We're going to play a lot of songs. We're totally pushing the limits of this tiny room and this tiny stage. But we like dancing and we like drinking and we like all of you. So we're going to play some hit songs, and we're going to play our new hit single. We recorded a hit single called Mystery Boogie Double Disco, and you can get it through the beer can. So if you want to hear the song, go to the website on the beer can and hear the song. And now we're going to do it.
I like doing tributes to people. I mean, I seem like a lunatic. I'm sitting here talking nonstop about this guy who I only knew for a few years, a decade ago, who's been dead for 5 years, and yet I just keep talking about him, and I keep telling everybody I know about him, you know? But I like tributes, and I like having a theme or sort of a muse, you know, like the Wiley Fosters are based on this idea of a tribute to my friend Foster Wiley and his ideals of being nice to each other and putting together bands. And I like having a theme. I like having a guiding idea. So having this band and making this beer, makes him feel like he's still part of my life.
So, this band is named after Foster Wiley, who was a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, who I knew when we lived in Clarksdale, Mississippi together. And he was famous under the name Mr. Tater, so if you look him up, he's really Mr. Tater. Mr. Tater, that was Mr. Tater. And he passed away 5 years ago this week, and actually 5 years ago today, I was in an ICU room in Memphis, Tennessee, visiting him, and I wrote a song for him. He never woke up, but I played this song for him, and this was the last song he heard. It suddenly got a lot more serious. I really love this guy. Some horns.
Yeah, make me happy. I don't say the same song twice either.